Hey guys, so yeah, for this video, we will be covering the likes of the number sixes and sevens throughout Super Rugby for this year, and we will be judging them in terms of our top five. So it's gonna be tough. It's a tough decision. We'll be covering both positions for sixes and sevens, so it's actually even more tougher for this scenario. But before we do so, we do the likes of the Kiwi lads with us again. So first of all, Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, Tim. Of course, just doing the top three for the sixes, five for the
Yes. Yeah.
sevens.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tricky one because sevens have been positioned that a lot of key roles have come into for this season in terms of some captains at seven. We've also seen some breakout seasons for that seven jersey, perhaps even possible bolters for the international sides.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree with you more there. Again, before we get into kind of like these two positions, make sure to click the like button, guys. We'd greatly appreciate that. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And of course, check out the Kiwi Lads channel. I will leave a link in the description below. But yeah, let's just crack on to this. And again, name your top fives also in the comments below, of course. But for us, we'll go straight into the number sevens. For your number five, who have you selected there?
Well, I've gone with a little bit of a out there selection at number five, as
Okay.
I often like to chuck in a name
Yeah.
out there that maybe not many people would have thought of. I've gone with Kitioni Salawa as my number
Ooh,
five.
okay.
For the
Okay. I
Fijian
like that.
drawer, it's
I
been a
like that.
while since I've actually mentioned a Fijian drawer player in these top five videos,
Exactly.
but when I looked at this man's stats, this is after 8 games. He scored a
Yeah.
try, he's had 239 metres carried from only 55 carries. He's beaten 27 defenders in those 8 games, so
Yeah.
not exactly a bad conversion rate. He's had 4 clean breaks, and he's also had the offloads. He's tackling at 87%, making 80 tackles, so it's not exactly a bad number in that regard, and just those defenders beaten just stood out like a sore thumb. So I gave him that number five spot. I've got a couple honourable mentions that didn't make it into my top five as well, I should quickly mention. Billy Harmon was very close, which I feel like I possibly should have had him in that top five, but he just narrowly missed out. And also I had Charlie Gamble, who I think's had a decent
Ooh,
enough
okay.
season for the Tars, even though,
Fair enough.
as we know, they have not had a decent enough season.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And I do love to shout out Sawala, by the way, because he was incredible in that game, literally last week. So I was like, whoa, like this, he had a great game. So yeah, no, that's a good shout, that one. But of course, for my top five, my fifth position, I do have a different player to you in this one. I've actually gone towards the Highlanders in this spot, and I've actually gone with Sean Whitley here. I think he's had a really impressive season for the Highlanders, and again, it's one of those where you wouldn't actually think you'd be the number seven because Billy Harmon's actually been pretty good for them in the previous season since he's kind of arrived there. So it's one of those like where you would think that he would be in that position, but actually, mate, Whitley's been incredible actually for the Highlanders this year, and probably you can make the case being actually their best forward, I'd say, throughout this year for the Highlanders. So again, he's had 2 tries to his name, 1 try assist, and he's all over the place really for the Highlanders when he has to be, and he kind of reminds me of. I'm trying to think what's the best case scenario I can kind of compare him to a player, but he kind of reminds me in a way of what Artie does, but like from an attacking standpoint, not saying from a defensive point of view, but just where he's able to find gaps within defenses and kind of find that offload. And yeah, he's just a really good, solid player overall, all over. I mean, he's only 23 years old, by the way, as well. So he's a long way to go into his career, and maybe, just maybe, raises kind of a close eye on him, maybe for the All Blacks. You never know. But yeah, he's in my number 5 position here. Again, from number 4 position, this is where I've actually gone with my own very own Blues player with Dota Papali. I think this is where when I'm looking at the rest of the sevens here, I just think he's had a good season, but I just think there's sevens who are I just think have to get more recognition than him. And that's not saying that's not going against him, by the way, because he is a world class seven. But just I think he's had better seasons for the Blues. That's kind of like the way I see it. And again, he's had 2 tries to his name. He's had 1 try assist. He's had 145 tackles as well. That's up there, pretty good from a defensive standpoint. And again, that kind of backs kind of how the Blues have played throughout this year because they have been probably the best defensive team. So yeah, he's a big part of that. So I'd say 4 is. I think that's a respectable position. So that's kind of where I have him sitting there. But yourself then, who do you have at the number 4 spot?
Well, I have got a different 7, and these two
Okay.
are actually going to go head-to-head this weekend in Super
Ooh.
Rugby. I've gone with Tom Christie as my number
Ooh,
4. Of
okay. I
course,
like it.
everyone always talks about how many tackles that man makes throughout a season. He's made 171 so
Yeah.
far throughout Super Rugby, making 94% of them. So that is pretty handy indeed. He's also had 9 defenders beat him, which I think was a part of his game that a lot of people felt he needed to improve on. They thought that he wasn't really an attacking player as well as defensive. Unfortunately for him, the Crusaders have not had the season that they would have liked, but he's still been one of those handy enough players when he's out there on the field with the changes. Of course, not many of those senior players sticking around, needing those young guys to step up, and I feel like Tom Christie hasn't done that too badly, so I gave him number 4.
Yeah, no, good shout. That's good shouts. And again, like you said, he's been pretty good from a tackling standpoint, so I can understand the reasons why you've gone from there. But yeah, for your number 3 position, then who have you selected there?
Well, when we talk about tackles, Tim, this man gets a very, very big shout, and that is Carlo Tizzano. 202 tackles made throughout the season. He's also scored 4 tries. He's beaten 9 defenders. The thing that didn't make me put him higher was the fact that he's given away 14 penalties throughout this season. Now, that kind of number does hurt you, but of course, with the amount of tackles that he makes and the amount of breakdowns that he joins, with those 14 penalties, he's probably won about 14 turnovers as well for his side, yeah. So it kind of evens out a little bit. But yeah, I gave him that number 3 spot. He's been very solid for the Tars, and once again, the Tars just haven't been very solid for him.
Well, I mean, for the Western Force, you mean?
Did I say the Tars? Sorry, I still see that man in light blue. But, of course, he's gone to dark blue now, and they've got a chance of the playoffs. So, good luck to them.
Exactly. No, he's had a good season. He's a really good season overall. And to be fair, that's also a reason why I've also set them as a number 3.
For the Tars or the Force?
For the Force. Yeah, I'm going to put him for the Force this year. But no, he's been awesome. Like you said, 4 tries his name, 202 tackles, which is just unbelievable. And again, there's still 2 games to go. So it's, you never know. Maybe he goes to the 300 mark, depending if he gets 15 each game. I'm not sure that's...
That might be asking a bit much.
I'm not sure that's going to happen. But you never know. But,
no, you do. No, he's not going to get to 300.
if he was to do that, he'd be covering the whole field. But no, he's an awesome player, and definitely someone I believe that Joe Schmidt will look to in that number 7 jersey. Again, he's been incredible for the Western Force, and again, there's not a lot of bright sparks, you could say, in terms of what the Western Force have been able to achieve this year. Because again, they are pushing up for that playoff spot, like you said. But I think it's one of those where early on in the season they haven't really done as well as what they've been doing at the end. And again, I think Colodazano, however, has been pretty consistent, I'd say, throughout. So at least he's been a big performer for them from that standpoint. So yeah, similar to you, that's kind of the reason why I put him up at a number 3 spot. But yeah, go down to the number 2 then. This is where I think it's a 1 and 2 battle, similar to what we've had in previous kind of videos, where it is really coming down to a 1 and 2, where I think you can make an argument for both of them at the number 1, but I've made the executive decision kind of in a similar stance to what I've made in other videos to put Fraser McWright as my number 2 here. And it's a tough call. But again, looking at his stats, he's had 5 tries to his name, 4 try assists. He has 141 tackles. So from a try and try assist standpoint, actually, I think he actually has the most out of all the kind of sevens we're looking at. But it's just one of those where the one thing that lets him down, I think, is that red card he got against Montana Pacifica. And it's one of those where I hate to say it, but it's just a discipline thing that is literally the only reason why, guys, I've put him at the number 2 spot. He's been outstanding for the Reds, guys. Outstanding for them. He's had a better season than I believe than Harry Wilson. When you're comparing, I guess, their loose forward trio. But it's just one of those where, he just that one kind of instant that kind of led him to kind of go into that second place for me. But hey, look, he's been, like I said, a brilliant player, and definitely someone I see kind of starting maybe for the Wallabies going forward. Of course, with Hooper and kind of now kind of gone now. But yeah, for you then, here's your number 2.
I've also got Fraser McWright. He was very close to 1 for myself. He's got those 5 tries, like you mentioned. He's beaten 13 defenders. But a lot of the stats, with the exception of try assists, the man at number 1 beats him. And, if you're looking at in terms of how their sides have done, you'd almost say that McWright does deserve a bit more credit in that regard because, of course, the man who I assume we've both got at number 1, he's been on a pretty strong side throughout the season, whereas the Reds have had their times where they've struggled. He has got a yellow and he has got a red. Fraser McWright, whereas the man at number 1 has not got either. Of course, the only yellow that he has is on his kit. So, yeah, Fraser McWright will be my number 2, and I guess that transitions us. Number 1, I don't think it's going to be any surprise, but Peter Lakai is who I have got as the number 1 7 in Super Rugby so far. 4 tries, 391 metres carried, 14 defenders beaten, 6 clean breaks, 11 offloads, tackling at 91% with 142, and an All Blacks call-up just around the corner. He's going to be in there, surely, isn't he, Tim? What else can he do?
I don't know. It's so tough, this position, by the way, because, I mean, Razor has there are so many good players in that 7 spot because, like you said, there's obviously a question if Artie is going to be playing that 7 spot. We don't know because the format's a 2-2 this year. Could maybe shift into that 7, meaning there could be if like I was to get into the All Blacks, he'd be only seen as like kind of a cover for that 7. But then you also have Papa Lee, who's kind of being seen as that kind of I guess that next replacement at 7 if for Sam Kane, if that was the kind of the scenario. So I just don't know. It's really up for grabs, really. But as you said, I also do have Peter Lakai as number 1. He's been sensational for the Hurricanes, the most consistent player I'd say throughout this year, and I really do mean that because whenever he started, he's been awesome. But even coming off the bench, he's been awesome as well. Like literally last week against Mon Pacifica, he got a try, kind of blocking that kind of that kick, got a try for himself. Like he does everything right. And again, he's been able to do this because Artis Villa has been off in Japan. So it's just another reason why he's been able to kind of get a lot of minutes under his belt. And yeah, it's gone in his favor. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I actually don't even know if he gets into the All Blacks or not. I still haven't actually made up my mind as well. But man, he's had a great season for the Hurricanes. And again, if he can kind of continue this going into the playoffs, then they could be in a very strong position to win Super Rugby this year. But again, moving away then from the 7s, we will then go quickly into the 6s, like we mentioned, guys. Of course, there hasn't been as many 6s that have stood out compared to the 7s. So for that reason, that's why we've only gone with a top 3 in this case. But for yourself, who have you gone with for your number 6s?
So for myself at number 3, I've actually gone with Samipeni Finau, which may be a bit of a surprise. Okay. I know a lot of people would have him maybe a little bit higher up in that list. So far throughout the seasons, he has had 274 metres carried. He scored himself 1 try, which I actually think is a lot lower than he had last year, if I'm not mistaken. He actually scored a lot more tries in the 2023 season. He's still beating defenders, still working extremely well, and I do think that he's got a very good chance of being one of the blindside flankers that the All Blacks do have. But yeah, I gave him number 3. I feel like that's pretty reasonable for Samipeni Finau, and with the fact that he could still have maybe 3 or 4 games left, if not maybe even a little bit more if the Chiefs make it to the final, perhaps he'll make his way right up to number 1 with those games remaining.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, again, in terms of my number 3, I actually have Sira Uru here as my number 3. He had a really good start for the Reds this year. I mean, he was arguably like the number 1 6, I'd say, in the competition. Like he just was really good for them. But again, you have to kind of take into account that he's been playing 6 as well as lock throughout this year. So it's one of those like where he's been in and out in terms of those 2 positions. But man, I mean, I think that the one game that kind of springs to mind for me was that game against the Rebels in Melbourne, like where he got, I think, 2 tries to his name. It's one of those performances where I was like, whoa, that just kind of put his name in the conversation, just that game by itself, in Joe Schmidt's-Mann, I believe. So, yeah, look, he's had a good season. Yeah, so when you look at the stats here, he's had 2 tries to his name, 65 tackles, as well as 96% in terms of tackle completion. So it's just, the stats kind of prove that he's been all over the place. And yeah, he's been brilliant for the Reds. So that's why I put him in at 3. In terms of that 2, this is where I've gone with Samipeni Finau. I just think he's had a good season, but I don't think he deserves the number 1 spot. But again, he's been crucial to what the Chiefs have been able to do this year. Having 1 try to his name, like you said, 2 try assists and 90 tackles. So yeah, he's done his job. And I think, like you said, he's definitely been in the conversation for the All Blacks. But yeah, I just think there's been a better player, I think, than him in terms of that number 6 spot. Maybe you'll go to him. But in terms of your number 2, though, who have you selected there?
At number 2, I have actually got a man that you have selected in your top 5 sevens. And that is Sean Withy.
Really?
Now, okay. A lot of people, of course, remember what Sean Withy has done at 7 more recently, but people forget how strong that man's season started at number 6. Yeah. He was all over the place, and I feel like that actually set him up for the opportunity at 7 when that Harmon injury did come around. So Like when you look at some of his stats, he has been having a pretty impressive season. 279 metres carried, he's beaten 12 defenders, but like you mentioned, he is everywhere on the field.
Yeah,
And he's playing very well at the moment, Sean Withy. So I felt like he needed a mention in the Sixers
I like
department
that. I like that.
because of how he started. And then I guess now he's at that stage of how it's going with
Yeah,
that 7 jersey. Although Harmon now recently back,
yeah.
what does that do to it?
Exactly. It kind of puts it up for a conversation. But also with that in mind, would you say that if he were to get kind of an All Blacks call up, would you rather be him? Would you rather see him in that sixth position or that seven? Because I feel like the seven is so there's so many big.
Mm.
It's kind of I don't think really it's up for grabs for him. So I think the six is probably where he's best suited if he is to kind of get that opportunity. So is that kind of where you see it as well?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that at the moment, well, then saying that though, with some of the Sixers around, it's going to be pretty tough either way,
Yeah,
isn't it? So to
yeah,
even be in that All Black squad will be the biggest,
it's tough.
I guess, chance. But the fact that he has versatility might actually help
Yeah,
him in terms of getting selected, maybe. But it's going to be a tricky one. That is for sure.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, in terms of your number one, then who have you gone there?
Well, I have gone with a man who I actually had in the top five list for a different position, and that was the number eights.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, he started his season at eight, he's transitioned to six, and he's just done very well. Now, he's got 5 tries throughout the season, but he's probably had 2 or 3 disallowed tries as well because of things that have happened earlier on, such as
Yeah.
knock ons or discipline of his teammates. Flying down the wing most of the time, 303 metres carried, 10 defenders beat him, alongside 133 tackles. The South Canterbury boy himself, Cullen Grace, is there as the number 1 6.
Nice, nice. I like that. I like that. And yeah, so to me, I've also gone with Cullen Grace. I mean, like I said, 5 tries to his name, 133 tackles. Like he's done it all this year, and I think it's been actually better for him to play in that six jersey because I was surprised actually he was playing at the number 8 a lot under Rob Penny because I mean I'm surprised they weren't playing Christian or Willie at the number 8 spot more often earlier
Mm.
on this season because I thought he was outstanding for the Crusaders last year in that position. So it kind of came as a shock to me that they were playing Cullen Grace earlier on this season as the number 8, but Penny realized, of course, Christian Willie is definitely a starter and is now playing that position, is doing pretty well in that spot. And Cullen Grace, of course, is doing excellent in that 6 spot. So, yeah, it's kind of gone to his favor, actually, that that's kind of happened that kind of way around. But, yeah, Cullen Grace, definitely another player in the conversation for the All Blacks. Like you said, very versatile, can kind of cover both that 6 and 8 position. But, yeah, the question beggins, will he get a start, though, in either one? I just don't know. I don't know. But hey, he's a heck of a player. He's a heck of a player. So I would definitely consider him. I would definitely consider him. But we'll have to wait and see. But of course, that is the end of this kind of video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to obviously leave a like. Definitely subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, guys. Comment below, leave us your top fives for both positions if you can. Again, we were only able to come up with a top 3 for the Sixers. Maybe you guys can beat us on that front and get a top 5 in terms of that one. But yeah, like we said, make sure to check out the Kiwi lads. I'll leave a link in the description. But besides that, guys, see you guys next time.